Welcome back to the Pastor's Toolkit, the channel where we use the Bible to guide in growing in practical leadership skills. This week, we are going to look at the New Testament teaching on conflict resolution and how to shepherd your people to being better at resolving interpersonal conflicts. The great news is that we don't have to look to popular psychology or self help books to get the greatest teaching ever on conflict resolution. We only need to look to the brilliant words of Jesus in the Gospels. Many pastors complain that people bring them all kinds of problems. But most of those problems come from a failure to follow these fundamental teachings of Jesus. If you can teach this to your church, you won't have to put out so many fires or get involved in petty disagreements quite so often. There are two passages which we'll dissect. The first deals with how a Christian should handle a personal offense. The second one is what to do if someone feels that you have offended them. Between these two passages, there isn't much room left for strife or drama. Let's break it down. Matthew chapter 18, verse 15 to 17 says, "If other believers sins against you, you go privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. But if you are unsuccessful, take one or two others with you and go back again, so that everything you say may be confirmed by two or three witnesses. If the person still refuses to listen, take your case to the church. Then if he or she won't accept the church's decision, treat that person as a pagan or a corrupt tax collector." Now, this is how Christians should handle personal offenses. This is not about petty slights or hurt feelings such as, "I don't like how they looked at me," or "they didn't smile and greet me like I would have." Those are small ego-driven things that should not create problems in the church, especially among maturing believers. Jesus was talking about sin. If your brother sins against you, that is the first litmus test. If you are upset with someone, first ask yourself, did they sin? What scripture are they in violation of? If you can't answer that question, then you probably need to be quicker to forgive and be the bigger person over petty offenses. Perhaps you are really only upset because your ego was hurt. That's not a good reason to put tension on a relationship. Let's see what it writes in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant, better than yourselves. However, if they have actually sinned, do not skip any of these steps. You should not talk bad about them behind their back, nor should anyone first complain to the church elder." Jesus gives us a clear three-step process for reconciliation. First, in love, go and tell them their fault or their sin. It should be between you and them alone. Second, if they don't listen, take one or two other witnesses along with you. That's in verse 16. And the third one, if they still refuse to listen, then you take it to the church. That's in verse 17. As a pastor, this is your strongest boundary. Remind your people that if they come to you before doing step one, your job as a shepherd is to gently send them back to talk to them personally, privately first. Don't let them jump the queue and make you the judge before they have shown the courage to be a brother or sister. Many problems in the church stem from disobeying Jesus' fundamental teaching. Sometimes we react as if almost enjoy harboring hurt feelings and looking to others to validate those feelings rather than going straight to the culprit. It's easier to talk bad about someone behind their back rather than to confront them face to face. This is exactly opposite to what Jesus taught us to do. Being a follower of Jesus is not easy, but applying these first two steps will help you develop healthier relationships and to mature as a believer who actually follows God. Before we move on to how the church elder should respond in step 3, let's give our attention to another teaching of Jesus that takes this principle of reconciliation one step further with radical discipleship. It applies beyond the offense in your heart that you might feel against someone else. What if they have something against you? Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24 says, "So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God." Notice the pronouns in this passage. This is not about holding a grudge in your heart towards another person. We already discussed that earlier. It's about if he or she has something against you. That's how seriously Jesus takes reconciliation and relational harmony. Even if you feel you have done nothing wrong, but another person has hurt towards you, go and deal with that. This is radical discipleship. This leaves no room for self righteousness. If either party obeys Jesus, there will be relational harmony. He speaks to both the one offended in Matthew chapter 18 and the one who has caused another to be offended in Matthew chapter 5. Jesus urges both parties to seek out reconciliation and forgiveness. Do you see the genius of this? This is the ideal, a community of mature, gracious believers who will be quick to forgive one another. But it doesn't always work out so easily, and sometimes it becomes a larger issue. While that's the ideal, we do not live in an ideal world, and sometimes an issue cannot be resolved at the person to person level. And then we need to go to step number 3, which is dealing with the conflict at a church leadership level. That's slightly outside of the scope of this video, but we'll give you some scripture references to guide you into that. 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 19 to 21 shows what to do in the event of an accusation against an elder. And briefly, that is to not cover it up, but let the evidences confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses be brought forth. Don't play politics, but be honest and fair and give both sides a fair hearing. There's also a strong warning from Titus chapter 3 verses 9 to 11 against focusing on useless time wasters and also being stern with those who intentionally cause division in the church. These verses may not directly tackle the ones that we are trying to teach in this video, but of course the goal is to disciple your people so that most of the problems are resolved from Matthew chapter 18 and Matthew chapter 5 before it can be escalated to the church leadership. Let's look at a quick example. Now, Brother Anil borrowed 5,000 rupees from Sister Priya, promising to pay it back in a month. Now, 6 months have passed and Anil hasn't paid it, and now he avoids Priya in the church. Priya is angry and she feels she's been wronged and starts telling the worship team that Anil is a thief. In this case, there's a failure to keep a vow. Instead of gossiping, Priya must follow step number 1. She should go to Anil privately and say, "Brother, you broke your word and it's hurting our fellowship." If she gossips first, she's now in violation to Matthew chapter 16. Now look at Anil. He knows he owes the money. He feels the tension every time he sees Priya. Matthew chapter 5 says he shouldn't even lead worship or take communion until he tries to make things right. He shouldn't wait for Priya to come to him. He must go to her, admit the fault, and say, I cannot pay yet, but I'm sorry for avoiding you. Let's work it out. Now, this is radical discipleship. We hope this has been helpful and that you're able to communicate these brilliant relationship principles from Jesus to your people in a way that resonates with them and helps them grow into the better, more mature Christians they are called to become. Thanks for joining us here at the Pastor's Toolkit. See you next time.